of Hagley and District Light Car Club since about 1974. This is the story of a car club which in the year 2000 had become a senior citizen, aged 65 years old. The club was founded when 14 young men, mainly from the Hagley area, got together at the instigation of Jack Sidaway around Easter 1935 to form a motor club. First thoughts were to call it the Ferrari Club, but sense prevailed when those present in the back room of the Woodman at Clent realised that between them they had mainly MGs and Morris Minor Tourers. So it was that Hagley and District Light Car Club was named, with, presumably in those days, the need to differentiate between a light car and a cycle car. There was even a magazine published at the time called the Light Car and Cycle Car. The 14 founder members were Jack Sidaway, who drove an MG, Rex Kendrick, who drove a Morris Minor Tourer, Norman Binley, Doug Lawton, who was well known at the Woodman for many years, Eric Colwick, Dick Hadley, Dick Holden, Jeff Harper, Bill Harvey, Leslie Smart, Jack Woodall, Jack Granger, Norman Clare, and Len Shaw, who was also the owner of a Morris Minor Tourer. Alf Josephs, a local art dealer, was the club's first president, with Charlie Davis coming from the West Bromwich Car and Motorcycle Club as chairman. Jack Sidaway became secretary, and some 6 months after the club was formed, along came a Cadbury's apprentice, one John Dorset, who became the club's social secretary. By the end of 1935, the membership stood at around 50, and over 100 people attended the first dinner dance at the Bell Hotel. There was a wartime break in the club's activities, but on March the 20th, 1946, there was a meeting of 84 interested people when 78 old and new members were enrolled. At the AGM in April 1947, this number had increased to 127. Later that year, the Bromsgrove Light Car Club merged with Hagley. The club's accounts for 1946 showed a profit of £95, 12 shillings and 10 pence, and the membership fee appears to have been 10 and 6 in those days. Our film is dedicated to those early members who started what is now a thriving motor club with very nearly 400 members. The first filmed event is on the 3rd of July in 1955, when a sporting day was organised at the premises of Steel Scaffolding, Coventry Road in Birmingham, and the Hagley Club challenged members of the Shenstone Club. All the wonderful archive footage in the 1950s was filmed by George Chatham, a next-door neighbour of Harry Yapp, who became club secretary in the 1970s. Former club president in 1969, 1970 and 1985, 1986, Max Trimble, takes up the story of this first filmed event.
This commentary, due to the many images shown, makes no attempt to identify every person or car, although those watching this video may well know some of those involved. All the more fun if you can spot the individual. The aim of this commentary is to talk about the main characters and most significant events, and to aid older members on a trip down memory lane whilst giving newer members a partial insight of the club's history. The video also serves to show everyone how much things have changed, from clothing style, the wide variety of cars used, and the changing attitude to safety. There is Brenda Bratt with her MG TF. And this is Little Austin 7. And this is one of the Livingston's cars, a TR2. And a rather nice Sunbeam Alpine. Owner, I'm afraid, unknown. This is Stan Cracknell with his special. And we're back with the red TR again. Hockey stick on the line. Adello, driven by Lou Tracy. That's Don Woodall. And here's Harry Livingston, complete with bobble hat. De rigueur in those days and still in use today. Another bobble hat, this time Nigel Creswell, and there's his Riley Special. Ken Rawlings with pipe, driver of a Triumph Vanguard engine special called Buttercup. Ken was president in 1957 and 1958. A famous extrovert, pipe smoker, ex-RAF rear gunner, prisoner of war and great raconteur. Jeff Taylor. There's that standard again, the Livingston car. Look how close everybody gets to everything. Not much margin for error there. Bill Cox, club secretary. Jeff Taylor. Brenda Bratt on the right. Frank Livingston. Ken Rawlings again. Freddie Finnemore with his back to you, secretary of Shenstone Car Club. There's Bill Cox, secretary of Hagley Car Club. That's Gene Livingston. John Parry. Very handsome John Parry. That's John Dealey, and there's Harry Livingston again. Peggy Livingston, Frank's wife. Ron Lowe. Lola Grounds, married to Frank Grounds, both rally drivers. And Rawlings once more. Tony Fisher, president in 1977 and 1978 and 1995 and 96. Highly successful rally driver, winner of several rally championships all in one year. Took his honeymoon on the Tulip Rally with Pat, and an accomplished practitioner of PA and timing systems. Builder of the Boofy Mowog twin-engine Mini Special. Daughter, Jane, competes in a Mini which Tony still drives today. Look at the attitude to safety there. People standing on scaffolding anywhere and all very, very close to the cars. There's Brenda Bratt once more. And here she is in the car. John Dealey with cap. That's the Livingston TR. Dorothy Tracy with their TR. Morgan looks as though it's got a passenger. Can't be, can it? Nice HRG there. This time Frank at the wheel of a Dello. Getting his money's worth from the event. And that's Ken Rawlings' Buttercup. Just about to get out of shape just a little bit. The fearsome smoking Riley special of Nigel Creswell. Quite a handful, not ideal for tests, I wouldn't have thought. A flying standard. Guaranteed not to have the brakes working in reverse. That's another Livingston machine, by the way. Going home time. Here are the cars getting ready to go away from the site. There's the Livingston Flying Standard. That's the silver TR we talked about earlier. A little dent in the rear wing. I wonder if that happened on the scaffolding pipes. Still don't know who owns the Alpine. Perhaps somebody else does. That's Don Woodall with his Woodford Special. Early model Ford and the Brat MG. Into the traffic. Duncan Hollingworth with his special.
A year later, in July 1956, the Hagley Club challenged Sunback to a sporting day held at Honeybourne. Most of the activities appeared to be driving tests, and it must have been a cool July day, as people are wearing coats and bobble hats. Harry Livingston in a TR2 won Class B, and Harold Foster in a Ford Anglia won Class C. Back over to Max Trimble.
And we're with Nigel Creswell at the moment in a TR. Makes a change from the Riley, doesn't it? That's Brenda Bratt. Note she's changed the car. She's got a Triumph TR now with wire wheels. And a highly successful one too. Lived at the unfortunately named place Lickley End at Bromsgrove. Bobble-hatted Harry Livingston, TR. Economy of style and space. No wasted time there. There's Peggy Livingston with the fashionable glasses and hat of the time. Peggy always drove very well. Austin Healey 100. Don't know that owner, but we know one coming up in a moment. That's Frank Lewis, by the way. That's John Dealey with his Austin Healey, all very confusing, but John had two cars. This one was a road-going car, and the other one was more for circuit use. He was very successful on circuits and drove at Le Mans. There's the Livingston car again, this time the Morgan. Ideal for this sort of test. That pipe again, guess who? Gotta be Ken, hasn't it? We shall see. Yes, it is. Ron Lowe on the mic. There are the clocks, and Ron with the speaker again. Peggy overshoots a line a bit. Brenda Batt looks as though she's done a similar thing there. Here's John Dealey again with the Healey 100. And a little Austin A30 for a change. A standard Vanguard, a great hulk to hurl around. And a very early onboard camera shot, not quite like we have with Grand Prix these days, but it'll do for the day. Around the pylons or tins we go. People all very close again to the action. What a handful. A Hillman Minx, not quite so bad, but he gets the tin all the same. Over it goes. Does he get it coming back? Trying very hard, but manages to miss it, just. Peter Anton of Victoria Carpets fame. There's Gene Livingston once more, and this is Stan Cracknell with his special. There's Ron Kemp, well-known trials driver. Tony Marsh with his TMS special. And the immaculate Don Woodall, blazer, tie, cap with his Woodford special. There's Duncan Hollingworth. Now Lou Tracy saw the car earlier on in Dorothy Tracy's hands, but at a different venue, of course. He has a problem in a bit, you'll see. Here's Lou Tracy once more, our OK 400. And that's Ray Meredith of Morgan fame. Bobble-hatted David Westley from Dudley. A great enthusiast, if what somewhat hairy driver. Gene Livingston with a fashionable hat. And this is Ted Jenkins with his Bentley. Quite unusual type of vehicle for this kind of event. Bit of white line painting with the familiar Vim. And a Morris Minor Hoves interview. A smoking driver, quite apart from a smoking car. Tony Marsh's car. And another onboard camera shot. That looks like Don Woodall. And on his way back now. Don was extremely good, by the way. Lou Tracy, burning rubber and eventually breaking a stub axle. Neville Jarrett was there on the left. And a lot of oil there on the floor, or brake fluid probably. Nice Lee Francis away there. Owner unknown, I'm afraid. Nigel Creswell, we know who that is, and we know who Brenda Bratt is now. That's Peggy Livingston, sorting a few things out before she gets away, which she duly does. One hockey stick, one Austin Healey. Again, the unknown Austin Healey, though. Frank Lewis there on the left, talking to Ken Rawlings. That's Harry Hamilton, acting as starter. Mr. Woodall once more. Quite a breeze blowing, look at those clothes. Peggy Livingston. There's Ted Jenkins's Bentley again. Can't see much of Ted though, unfortunately. Bit of nifty action there with gear lever and brake. This is Harry Livingston once more. Bit more white line painting and a Morris Minor shunting backwards and forth. This is the Anglia of Howell Foster, lifelong Hagley supporter, especially on rally organisation with Jeff Taylor and with Max Trimble on Jim Carner events and the Guy Fawkes run. Gate man for 14 years at Hagley Castle Combe race meetings, and until his untimely death in 1999, never missed a Loughton Park hill climb on the gate. His son has now taken over, and that is Ben Foster. Not much seating about, is there really? Hillman Husky. And that looks like the results coming up. They speak for themselves. It looks like it's time to go home once more. A gathering of people, Peggy Livingston, Jeff Taylor, Brenda Bratt once more, Rawlings on the right, and the dog, probably Don Woodall's, unless he's borrowed it from somebody. Ron Lowe there. Getting all the attention, must be Don's. A young Livingston. Linny, we think. Tony Marsh puts his car in a trailer. This is pre-motorhome days, you know.
All those years ago, it was mainly trials and driving test orientated motorsport organised by the Hagley Club. And we move on now a further year to April 1957, when some driving tests were held at Home Farm, Dunsley Hall, this place being the home of the Marsh family. The tests were held on a loose surface, with Harry Livingston once again winning his class in a TR2, and brother Frank making an appearance in, once again, that standard, registration number OUY 265. Watch for him later on.
In fact, you can watch him right now in that Morgan. Frank Livingston, a great all-rounder, president of the club in 1961 and 1962, drove well in sprints, hill climbs, autocross and especially driving tests. Closely involved with event organisation, with considerable support from wife Peggy, a successful competitor in her own right. There's Ron Lowe once more. On the tube. Don't know that gentleman. Haven't been able to track him down. That was David Hurd on the left, and there's the Fuzz. David Nurse on the left. This is John Handley's Ford Squire getting away. Duncan Hollingworth in a Morris Minor. A little Fiat 600 driven by Robin Stretton, father of Martin Stretton, currently successful in historic car racing and car preparation. Frank Livingston once more, with the standard, of course. An A30, John Orchard at the wheel. Peter Anton, Harry Hamilton, Jeff Taylor, and Mike Chambers. Mike with the standard. That's Rag Foster, another member of the Foster family. Ford Anglia, of course. This is Tony Marsh in his own backyard. Ought to know his way around here. But getting perilously close to the pylons. And for that matter, the wall. This is John Whitmore, later to be known as Sir John Whitmore. Very successful racing driver, taking part in what is believed to be his first motorsporting event. Duncan Hollingworth again. Bit of timekeeping equipment. And a few marshals working hard with bales. Don Woodall in the foreground. Bill Wallace on the left. And a rather nice little Renault. John Handley once more. That's Peter Longland. Bit of bovine grace. And down goes a pylon. Not a very suitable car this though, the large Austin. Just fits through the gate post. Bill Wallace again. And that's Stan Cracknell. Peter Longland in the middle. This is an interesting car. It's the Keith 1500, driven there by Berwin Baxter and shared by Berwin and myself in the Tourist Trophy race at Dundrod in 1955. We actually managed to finish, believe it or not. Tony Marsh on the start there. Very tricky. John Whitmore once more. Hagley, we believe, was his first car club. And that's David Nurse with peculiar glasses. There he is. That's Duncan Hollingworth once more. Stan Cracknell on the left, smoking a pipe. And that's David Westley sorting out the gearbox. And a change of test. A lot of milling around. Quite a lot of Hagley badges. Tom Parry. Jeff Tucker. We know that is, don't we? And a bit of line painting. And Tony Marsh again. There's the Keith, the Berlin Baxter once more. And there's Sir John. Well, he is now Sir John, he wasn't then. There's Brenda Bratt with the TR, sorting it all out, asking which way to go by looks of it. Sure to know by now. Another onboard camera shot. It shows how difficult it all was and how close things got to you. Just the odd straw bale between you and disaster and the house wall. God, I wouldn't stand there. All lining up, all ready to go again. Bit of drinking going on. Harry Hamilton, timekeeper. Tony Marsh and the police. And the guy on the right is Tony Marsh's mechanic, Mike Walton. Petrol pump of sorts. That Standard did work hard for its living, didn't it? Nick Barwell driving a Morris Minor loaned to him by a lady called Christine Guest, and the car was actually Christine's mother's car. And another change of test. Peter Longland there, and the Morgan gets away. This time it's Frank Livingston once more. Loads of dust. Note how they all seem to wear ties and coats and things. And of course Bobble hats. Quick shot of the crowd. And all this was in Tony Marsh's backyard. You can't believe it, can you? Nick Barwell once more, with that Minor. Mike Chambers, with his Standard. Closer of Tony Marsh, working hard for a living. Absolutely full lock there. And Sir John once more.
club held sprints at various locations, including Westwood Park at Droitwich, Wellesbourne near Stratford, and at the Chateau Imlay Hotel just outside Droitwich, at least until the mid-1960s. But this event was on the 29th of September in 1957, which must have been a very early, if not the first, visit to the famous but now sadly gone sprint course, which took about 30 seconds to complete. I can recollect going to sprints in the mid-1960s, but this event was just before my interest in motorsport really began. But Max Trimble knows exactly what went on.
Well, some of it, I don't think all of it though. That's Bill Moss anyway, and you've just seen John Turvey get away with his Lotus. Bill Moss on the line, he gets away. Up a very narrow road, that's Austin Nurse with that lovely Cooper Bristol. Garage East from Birmingham. This is Chris Summers with his Cooper. Determined driver, like the drink. And he would probably have one when he got to the top of the hill. Ken Rawlings, of course, with that pipe again. That's Ron Lowe. Ken Nightingale, secretary of the Bugatti Owners Club. Harry Hamilton, Fred Fletcher. Inside the caravan, there's Tony Marsh on the right, and that's Eunice Griffin there. Very successful lady driver, driving David Porter's Jaguar on this occasion. Peggy Livingston with a different kind of car this time. Pauline Mayman comes to the line with the Morgan. Married to Lionel Mayman. John Turvey's Lotus again. He starts, as you can see another car coming forward over the bridge in the background. Jim Berry, famous hill climb driver, twin rear wheels on this one. Little sweeping, as ever, still do it today. Edward Lewis of Westover Shoes fame, with his Lotus. And now we move up to the bridge area. Road went left and right, and in doing so went over a little bridge, and there's a big tree right ahead of you. You can probably see it there right now. That's David Evans with his Triumph. Also driving a Lotus 11 at this event. Nice AC going through at the top of the hill now, or almost at the top. Last left-hander before the right-hand turn to the finish. Good drift on there, you can get along quite well at that point of the track. Nearing the top of the hill climb now, the road goes right just in front of the Chateau Imlay Hotel. This is the place. And over the line you go. Stay 120 heading up. Tony Marsh, 6 times hill climb champion. Someone pulling the string to make it go better. heading up towards the bridge. And some marshals there. Morgan about to take the last corner. And over the line shortly. There's Reg Phillips. Reg holds the record at Chateau Impney. Can never be taken from him now. Tom Woodall. Ken Nightingale. K140, getting out of shape. It's Eunice Griffin, and she strikes the tree just beyond the bridge. Quite a lot of car damage, and didn't do Eunice a lot of good either. She had a broken tooth, and you'll see in a moment, not good. David Porter wouldn't have been too pleased about it, but his pocket is, or was anyway, fairly deep. Ambulance to the scene as a precaution. Eunice wasn't seriously injured, fortunately. Bit of sorting out to do, and now we're back in business with another Jaguar. This time the XK120 makes it, as does the XK150 Coupe. Oh dear, that's a bit out of shape, but he got over the bridge somehow. Wouldn't let you wear a red sweater at the side of a track now, would they? They'd think it was a red flag being waved. As I said earlier, times have changed. D-type Jaguar, owner unknown. Quite a handful on this piece of road, I would imagine. Rawlings and Nightingale together. And a C-type Jaguar, dually driven, but by whom, again, we don't know. Lotus getting out of shape back there. Lotus Mark 9. And Nigel Cresswell with that Riley once more. This time on a sprint. In GA. Good shot of Frank Livingston and of John Parry demolishing a chicken. Go on, give me a bit. We don't know who the bearded guy is, but that's Ashley Clee with the Morris Minor Special. Very, very quick car. There's Nigel with his Riley again, in Bone Dome. Up goes the red flag. To the line, a fairly heavy looking XK120, as though it's a lot of hard work. Nice AC. And a rather nice Riley. One of the Threlfords, probably Chris. David Evans' Triumph. Sorts it all out, puts his goggles on, and away he goes. There's the bearded guy again. Back to the single-seaters, 1100s and so on. Something bigger now, XK120. Can't tell you who the driver is, just a partial view. Nice cleaver to the start. And away. Earlier in the sequence you saw a picture of a Turner on the start, a red one right at the beginning, and that was John Hagley. And John was president of the club in 1973 and 1974. He was highly successful as a rally and circuit driver, especially with minis. He had one of the first minis and brought it to a Hagley Club event at the Stew Pony at Stourton. Everybody laughed and said that that silly little sort of car would never do any good. He went on to be European touring car champion with a British Vita Mini. He is past chairman of the British Racing Drivers Club and is married to Sonia, a motoring and golfing enthusiast. His daughter Jilly has recently been highly successful in top-level ladies rallying. Some good crowd shots there again. David Good, Cooper. Highly successful hook climb driver. And another bearded man. Don't know who he is either. Oh, that one. He's set in stone though. And a little bit more eccentricity here. Doc Taylor with the Caesar Special. Reg Phillips with the Fairly Special. Climax engine car, which, as I said earlier, went on to take the record at Chateau and holds it to this day. There's that dual-driven C-type once more. Can you tell me who the driver is? Ron Lowe, and a little bit of sweeping up going about. Here's Jim Berry. Cloud of smoke. And it's hats off time. And time also for a bit of swanning around.
Club member Ken Wharton had been killed during a race practice at Auckland in New Zealand whilst driving a Ferrari, and the club wished to commemorate this famous member. So it was that on the 25th of January 1958, the first ever Ken Wharton Memorial driving tests, still going strong even now, were held. A large crowd at the Chateau Impney saw the Midlands team of Tony Marsh, Harry Livingston and John Dorset win the event in front of the BBC outside broadcast cameras. Just a few fleeting seconds of the Midlands team 42 years ago in action were used by BBC Midlands Today to preview the October 2000 event.
You've just seen Tony Marsh, but to go on, the tests were the brainchild of Ron Lowe. long-time club chairman and president in 1953 and 1954. Mentor to Tony Marsh and to Peter Collins and others. Ron did much to control this event, which required split-second timing of the tests to fit the broadcast schedule, which was live, with commentator Raymond Baxter. The first event was interregional, but in November 1958 the first national event was held, with Scotland winning for their one and only time. Northern Ireland have dominated the series, which for a while included a Dutch team which comprised Ben Heisman, Freek Dudok van Heel and Gijs van Lennep, who was later to win the Le Mans 24-hour car race. Cameraman in action with car. Car from the southwest, hence SW. Jeff Taylor, Scottish car, and the crowd. A Midlands car, obviously, but not a BMW. Quite heavy equipment in those days, obviously. The Midland Saloon, a familiar standard. Don Woodall there. We now have a change of test. Adrian Carlos in the background there. Jack Bayliss, better known as OK Left, with the cigarette. Jack Burgess with the moustache, a familiar figure at Loughton Park in recent years until his death 2 years ago. Tony Marsh comes to the start. It should not be forgotten that Ken Wharton was arguably one of the best all-rounders. 4 times hill climb champion, a works rally driver, and achieving great success in international sports car and Grand Prix car racing. For his win at Albi with the V16 BRM, he received an enormous trophy, which is now one of the club's major annual awards. There's that bobble hat again, with Harry Livingston's TR. Malcolm Livingston now uses the same hat, even to this day. Bit of camera action. See the crowd there? Give everybody a piece of rope to hold and they won't go in front of it. Bit more scene changing. And Tony Marsh back in action again. Bit of neat motoring in the box there and comes out clean. Another Dello doing the same thing. That's the Northern team. Conditions obviously aren't good because wipers are going and the ground is getting quite seriously churned up. John Dorset with his Anglia. And we come to the close of the event and to the awards presentation. There's Bill Hartley of the BBC, the producer of the event on the television, and Frank Livingston, the captain of the winning team.
Driving tests were becoming all the rage, and on the 29th of June 1958, the club organised the Flather-style driving test at the Vano Works in Tipton, a location which was used up to the early 1970s for such events.
It says motor rally. I don't quite know what they mean by that, but they must. Flags are out anyway, looking good, the weather's fine, peering under the bonnet of the TR and a bit of tyre pressure going in there. Ron Lowe, Jeff Taylor, Bill Cox, Ron again, and the usual workings out. Start of a test, obviously. Peter Cooper of RAC fame later, quite a competent trials driver as well, and rally driver. This is Pat Reynolds with his Dello, which had a special body, or partially a special body, made of Tufnell, material originally made and intended for use in gear wheels. That, of course, is Frank Livingston. Peggy Livingston in the same car, the red Morgan. That's John Parry with his Morgan. Bit of tyre burning going on. Look at the rubber on the road there. There's a big car for an auto test, or as it was called in those days, a driving test. I never really could understand why they changed the name. No doubt someone will tell us eventually. Ford Anglia. Ford Popular. Riley 1.5. And a Wolsey. A35. And now a Land Rover about almost to roll over. Here's Ian Mantle with the Barclay. Highly successful, this car as well. Weaving its way between the pylons with great ease. And this is Bonner Smith with his Ford Anglia. Just watch him go. Death-defying stuff. The Hagley Club and support for the Conservative Party took up much of Bonner's life. He gave a lot in time and support from his various chain-making and ship's tackle businesses. He was president in 1965 and 1966 and was assisted by his daughter Marilyn and son Martin. He was closely involved in the organisation of Hagley race meetings at Landau, Castle Combe and Mallory Park, as well as numerous other events. And he was manager of the winning Hagley team of minis in the 6-hour relay race at Silverstone. Another Anglia, which looks like Harold Foster this time. And a Renault Dauphine, which I believe is probably Don Woodall. He used this car quite a lot in production car trials. There's the Wolsey. Closely observed by marshals, of course. Those petrol pumps back there look a bit vulnerable, don't they? Another big car, big Ford Zodiac. There's our friend Duncan Hollingworth again. There's Tony Marsh, complete with Austrian hat. He'd just come back from Austria and had all the goodies, including Leverhosen. Round of applause, must have been a good run. There's Peter Cooper again. Harry Livingston, Ken Rawlings twirling the moustache, and the Barker gets to business. There's Pat Mailer, Bill Ridley, Steve Perry and Pat Mailer again. The Barker. Motoring backwards in great style. Jeff Taylor with Vim. And Vigor, presumably. Don't know who that is on the floor. And Frank Wall comes in to take his test. Tony Marsh with his hat on. Duncan Hollingworth. That's good. Can I have some? Fire precautionary equipment and a dog again. There's Steve Perry, later to be Secretary of the MAC. And there is young Malcolm Livingston. Jeff Tucker. Ian Mantle. Ron Lowe and crowd. There's Pat Mailer. Nice smile. She gets away nicely. And there's the Vono van. Is he competing? Don't think he is, but John Parry is, I think. There he is, about to go. There's Steve Barclay again. Ian Mantle at the wheel. Lifting the wheel. Determined PR man. Another year passes to the summer of 1959 and a return to the Vono works for a driving test when Hagley challenged the Shenstone Car Club. There's the van again, or several of them anyway. Nice lineup of TRs and MGs, what have you. Barclay there. We've seen the special before. Rear view of a Healy Sprite, Frog Eye. Nigel Creswell, maker of Pop, by the way. Jeff Tucker with Pipe. Harry Hamilton, the timekeeper, and Jeff Taylor. Without cigarette, by the way. Bit of advertising. George Spears, future president of the club. Nigel Creswell. And Pat Reynolds with his Tufnell special. Obviously a sunback man. And someone's been to Le Mans, or just they're pretending to have been. That again is Ian Mantle. Back at Vono, of course. That's Harry Hamilton waving the next car along. bin down, I think, or two, or maybe a few more. Peter Longland with his MG. Here is a Goggamobile in the hands of Mike Hawley. Quite an extraordinary little vehicle, made to look even shorter by the foreshortening effect of this piece of film. It's well battle-scarred down the side as well, as you can see. Freddie Finnemore on the right. And there's the Goggo again. Having a serious run down the straight. Bit more on-screen advertising. Nice little Fiat. Seems to have plenty of room between the pylons, that does. Not perhaps quite as much as the Goggamobile. That has rather less room. That's probably Malcolm Brown's Zephyr. And the Tufnell Special again. And I think we've seen that Hillman Mink somewhere before. Ian Mantle. Almost coming to a standstill. Gear selection was a problem sometimes with that car. Austin A40 Sports, built in West Bromwich, aluminium bodied and built at Jensen Motors. This is Don Woodall with the Renault Dauphine. And a change of test by the looks of it. Jack Burgess. This is Mike Chambers's Herald Sports. Don't know who the girl is, but Mike's interested. Davy Grounds driving Lola Grounds Ford, also of course Frank Grounds from Sutton Coalfield, and by all intents and purposes learning to do it. Nice MGA coupe. John Dorset, ex-Ford Works Rally team driver with Joy Cook and Ken Wharton. He was president of Hagley in 1975 and 76 and was almost a founder member of the club. He was a past secretary and a great character, immensely hard-working, and during the war and his time in the army, it is said that he was put in charge of stores and supplies at Crystal Palace, and that no one who knew John went short of anything. Later, as secretary of the meeting at Castle Combe race meetings, his inability to get up in the morning to sign competitors on was legendary.
There's now a change in the photographer of our archive films, and the club has passed its adolescent stage with the majority of Harry Yap's cine films being shot in the early 1960s. Harry's first chronicled shot was, however, on the 22nd of March 1959, with preparation being carried out prior to the Worcestershire Sporting Trial on that date. Back to Max Trimble.
Look at the hard work going in there, all the digging and towing and tugging. There's George Spears. Hope there aren't any tree preservation orders on this lot. There's a view of the countryside on the Marsh family estate near to the Stew Pony Hotel. There were two sections, one called the Ridge and the other called the Slads. Out comes another tree. And now to the event itself. Frank Lewis, solicitor from Birmingham. Some hard-working drivers, Frank being the first, Frank and Betty Lewis, Harry Livingston marshalling there. There's the Tufnell car once more. There's George Spears. George as president in 1959 and 1960, a driving instructor by profession and possessed with nerves of steel. Isn't it muddy? Look at that lot coming down there. I'm glad it's them and not me. Yet it must be hot. He's waving his hat. A bit of effort required to get up this one. Struggling there, but looks as though Frank and Betty are going to do it. Bit more effort. Oh, no, can't quite make that one. Try again. Oh, that worked. Over the top we go. Harry Yap. Over the top, 4 marks and a round of applause. Well deserved, I should think. Two resting marshals. And the start of another section. Harry Livingston halfway up, or is he halfway down? Like Frank, another superb all-round driver. Succeeded Frank as president in 1963 and 4. Is married to Jean, who was closely involved in many aspects of club affairs. Harry has been followed in driving tests by son Malcolm, who is very quick in a Lotus 7. Harry has also organised many auto test events for the club, including the Ken Wharton, and continues to do so. Here's Malcolm Hazelwood with his wife Jean. Malcolm was the enthusiast's enthusiast, always cheerful, would have a go at anything, using one of his stable of cars, including Dello, MG, Jaguar D-Type replica, and others. Equally good at auto tests, trials or sprints, and a master in overcoming the rule book. Jean, his wife, also competed with her Austin Healey Sprite. And there we are at the finish, at the Stewpony Hotel on the main Kidderminster Road. Get into some serious drinking now and maybe have a meal. Brief shots now of the Sunday afternoon alphabet run, organised by Jeff Taylor. This event started at the Cross Keys pub, West Hagley, and was a treasure hunt. Other such events included the Hiawatha Run, the Guy Fawkes Run, the latter surviving in its original form to this day. There they are at the start, sorting it out. We return now to the Chateau Empney. We think this sprint being filmed on the 30th of September 1962. You saw the young Livingstons there, admiring it. And now there are some good shots of the chateau itself. There was a bar in the basement of the hotel, which was at the top of the hill, and it was not unusual in those happy days to pop in for a quick one whilst waiting to return to the paddock after your competition run. Some good paddock shots coming up. McLaren, Patsy Burts, we believe. A variety of cars waiting to go to practice. That's Austin May's Lotus. And a Mini, a Keep Eve batch, so it must be Nicky Porter. Downton Engineering badge on the tuned rocker cover there. A Borg Ward. There's Ashley Cleave's car. David Hurd there, and in the background the Newton van. That's Pat Reynolds and the E-Type Jaguar of Jack Lambert, later to be acquired by Max Trimble. This is an interesting car, a Briton made in Wolverhampton, or more accurately in Willen Hall. Note of the accelerator pedal there. Fine bit of coach work. Peggy Livingston, and the Motorquip, the van doubling as a creche. All the Go Faster goodies there. Richard Neal's Lotus Elite there. Richard is Matt Neal's uncle. And he goes. Hockey stick under the wheel. And Peggy Livingston goes. Harry Livingston taking command. And the dispatch rider sets off. The motorcyclists were used to close the course after various sessions. There's Harry Hamilton in the timing van, Janet Fletcher and Fred Fletcher. And a crunched TR. Probably hit the same tree that Eunice Griffin hit in a previous event. Looks that way. Quite nicely dented. A few marshals standing about. The ambulance and the staff, St John's of course, on this occasion. Back to the bridge and hopefully over it. Nice little Porsche 356. And the Healy doesn't make it. Has to be pushed out, but fortunately it didn't do any harm to itself, the driver, or anyone else. There's OK Left, Jack Bayliss to be precise. There's Austin May coming through. That looked like Peter Gaskell that just went. Mayor and various dignitaries, and sitting on the straw bale is Pat Fisher. Pat was club treasurer and still for that matter is, and has occupied the position for many years. She was president in 1989 and 1990 and is closely involved at Loughton Park. Married of course to Tony Fisher. That we think is Patsy Burt. And that looks like Harry Livingston. At the top of the hill now, of course. Negotiating the final right-hander. Austin May, writer of several interesting books on hill climbing. Peter Gaskell. Patsy Burt walking about there. And a change of scene to a sporting trial in the early 1960s. There's Reg Phillips. We've already seen him negotiating Chateau Impey rather nicely. Fairly muddy, as usual. Resting marshal. Slow progress being made there amongst the trees. Oh, hard work. Try a bit harder. Oh, work the fiddle brake. No, that didn't work. Tom Parry. Up we come. Well, nearly. Not quite, though. How frustrating to get that far. But it happened again. Can we have another go, please? That didn't work either. Bogged down with lots of understeer. Now, who's this then in the trees? Ah, young lady, Linny Livingston. Smiling for the camera. And a nice kiss. Richard Yap with bobble hat. Oh, nearly did that bit, but no, never mind. Really serious effort here, getting up. Almost there, but again, tough. Not quite all the way. Looks like Richard Yap again, with matching hat and scarf. John Parry looking like Clark Gable. And here the youngsters again. Wait for me, Richard. Wait for me. Oh, gosh, Richard, wait for me. Wait. Oh, I'm all out of breath now. And that is Tony Marsh taking the dog for a walk. Bit of sliding back, or would they say backsliding? There's Tony Marsh again with Mike Walton. Not quite getting to the top on this occasion. Off we go another section. Frank Lewis in charge. Knocks the pylon sideways, I think, there. Being closely watched around the trees. And yes, I think he probably made that. As long as he didn't get penalised for hitting a pylon. Another smoking competitor. Try the fiddle brakes, but as usual, they don't work. Why you bother, really? Back now to Chateau Impney on, we think, the 24th of September 1961. And there's the mayoral car opening the course, proceeding nicely up the first part of the hill. All the dignitaries there, and there is Harry Livingston, cups in hand, not caps but cups. On the start, hockey stick under the front wheel, and away we go. Bit of sweeping about to take place. And the next car to the line. Followed by a Porsche, 365 Porsche. There's the Newton Oils van. Dispatch rider waiting by. And that's David Good. He starts. Ashley Cleve with the Morris Minor special. A large supply of Newton Oils there. David Good car in the paddock there. There's the Caesar special. There's the driver, Doc Taylor. Lucky Horseshoe. Bugatti owner's badge and all. Keith cars. In those days they were still building cars under ownership of Berwin Baxter. That's Rivers Fletcher in his HWM Jaguar, polishing like mad. A Cooper getting a good clean. That's probably Patsy Bert's car. And back to Rivers again, getting it absolutely right. There he is, the man himself, marred by two youngsters, and Dunlop Racing on the wheel. And now a complete change of scene to autocross and to the field at Dormston. There's the Livingston Mini, Harry and Jean's car. Jean in control, we think, or more or less. Beetle, VW Beetle, very popular in those days for that kind of sport. And a rather rapid Sprite, kicking up the dust. Followed by an equally rapid, if not quicker, TR. Bit more of a handful, though. Followed by another Mini, which is trying ever so hard, chucking up the dust, digging up the ground, and looking like an accident about to happen. Which it does. Over it goes, and back onto all four wheels. Out come the rescue lads. Driver okay, car slightly dented. This is John Spinks's Triumph Herald. In autocross, anything could happen, and probably did. The club ran numerous such events, including Players Number 6 Championship rounds, and other sites included one at Wychbold. Prominent in autocross was Tony Fisher with the Buffy Mowog and Bill Rokins with the Wilton Special. Good little dice going on there. Their Livingston Mini once more. And now a final return to Chateau Impney, and it could once again be the 30th September 1962. Tony and Di Marsh there, with Tony's Formula 2 Cooper. Tony was very successful also on the circuits, and this may be the car with which he won the first Autocar Formula 2 championship. Getting a tow with the Borg Ward. This is David Good once more. Very talented driver. Beautifully prepared car. He's away there. Peter Gaskell now to the start. Getting all set up and ready to go. That's a Livingston Triumph and Patsy Bert's Cooper there. A bearded gentleman once more, and Tony Marsh on the start. Lot of sweeping going on. That's Austin May, Can May, with his Lotus. And here's Peggy Livingston coming back down the hill. Doug Newman with Number Bush. And Number Paper. You've seen that Cooper before somewhere. Max Trimble's Mark II 3.8 Jaguar, receiving attention from Doug Newman. Ron Lowe there at the start with Harry Livingston. Speaking to the dispatch rider. And an E-Type on the start, and I think this will probably be Ken Rawlings' car from P.J. Evans in Birmingham. Followed probably by a P.J. Evans Bentley, and again probably by a P.J. Evans Standard Vanguard. A Mini starts. One of many Minis, no doubt. There's another one. Slightly more modified, and an interesting looking Ford. Nice Singer, and Neville Cope's Lotus Elite. Bob Beck's Jaguar. Another car goes into the bridge, or rather through it, not over it. And a spinner. Someone into the bales, but apparently no harm done. Car and driver okay, and the car is manhandled back onto the track and sent on its way. Dual-driven triumph of the Livingstons, and there's Davy Good through the bridge now. That's Peter Gaskell there. That's Michael Christie. Rare shot of him, going very well indeed with his Lotus. An MG, another single-seater of unknown description, and Frank Wall's Bugatti. Now at the top of the hill, turning right toward the finish line. Quick Lotus 11 coming through there. And another one. And it looks as though it's raining. Wipers going there on the Rawlings Jaguar and on the Mini as they come back after completing their runs. Chateau in the rain was not much fun, I can assure you of that. Harry Yap's films of the 1960s conclude with a visit to the headquarters of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers for a driving test in which he himself is seen competing. There's a Beetle, bouncing about as they do on their suspensions. And that looks like Harry Yap, it is indeed, with his rather nicely modified Sprite, with raised headlights, not the Frog Eye style. Harry Yap, like Ken Rawlings, was an ex-prisoner of war, always enthusiastic as a committee member and as a past secretary of the club. His main interest was in auto testing, previously known as driving tests. He was well supported by his wife Pat, who continues to maintain an interest in club affairs, and also by his son Richard, again mainly through auto testing. Mini Cooper going nicely. And that's Holland's Mini. There's the Yap car again. Working his way through the pylons as before. There is another Sprite, or Midget, or Spridget. Call it what you will, basically the similar car. George Holland again. And there's Richard Yap, about to take the start, and away he goes with the shared Sprite. We move on now to another decade and to the 1970s with Rob Wales' cine-films of the club's activities. Over to Rob.
Thank you, Max. The first sequence we're going to see shows Loughton Park, first used by the club in 1970 on the 30th of April 1972. Following John Stewart, there's Peter Matthews in his Mallock U2. And that's Ken McMaster. Always a very, very neat driver, but only ever had one British Championship win. Following Ken, we see some hill climb champions of the future. That's Martin Griffiths, who first won in 1979, and he recorded the first ever sub 50-second time at Loughton Park in 1980. That's Roy Lane, champion in 1975 and 1976. There's 1971 runner-up and 1972 champion Sir Nicholas Williamson in the Formula One March 712. And finally David Hepworth in the very fearsome four-wheel drive Chevrolet powered Special, defending then his 1971 championship win. Later that year, on the 4th of November, I was at the Ken Wharton Memorial Auto Tests held at one-time club headquarters Pedmore House in Stourbridge. Northern Ireland had won the annual event since 1969, and in 1972 Harold Hagan, Ken Irwin and Ken Shields again were triumphant. Here we see Northern Ireland in frenetic action. Pedmore House as club headquarters attracted a large number of members every Tuesday evening for some time. Eventually, however, the numbers dwindled and the regular Tuesday night noggin and natters ceased. The Whittington Inn was also tried as our headquarters for a very short time, with auto tests also being held on the large car park there. Nowadays, finding a decent auto test site is quite hard work, and more recently the Ken Wharton auto tests have been held at the Arrow Mill Hotel at Ulster. In fact, we've been there probably now the best part of 10 years, and it's a very, very successful site. The amateur part of our Shots of Yesteryear concludes with a film of the club's activities in the year 1973, when we were just 38 years old. The year started at Rockhill Farm, Greet, with the Jeff Taylor Sporting Trial. Jeff himself had soon followed John Dorset in 1935 as a club member, armed then with one of the first trials car in the country. This first event of the year was won by Tony Harrison ahead of Jack Pierce and Lol Hurt. The site offered a wide variety of hills for competitors to attempt, some through trees, some through more open spaces and some good sideways traverses. One of the main problems was access and sufficient parking for competitors, marshals and officials. Nowadays the club has been using another farm at Hurtle Hill, Heightington, for several years. Conditions in 1973 looked pretty well perfect. Sun was shining, the competitors had to struggle a little bit. Still plenty of leaves on the ground to catch them out, and there is Jack Pierce. Despite the sporting trial being held in February, the event has generally been blessed, even up to now, with decent weather. And as we've said, 1973 was no exception with brilliant sunshine. Brief shot on the left of Max Trimble, my fellow commentator. One of the sideways traverses, finishing with a steep uphill climb. And that's Margaret Blankstone, having her annual winter break from hill climbing, and she has been bounced by her father. But it looks like then she did get a bit stuck. The site at Greet was used several times in the 1970s and once again in 1992. Some very delicate driving there, and now foot hard down on the throttle. And here we see the winner of the 1973 Jeff Taylor trial, Tony Harrison in his trademark tartan hat. The club took over Loughton Park in 1970 from Severn Valley Motor Club, and apart from being 65 years old in 2000, we are celebrating 30 years of competition at the venue. Nowadays, Loughton Park Practice Day is once again very popular. It was also so back on the 18th of March 1973, when members are seen in the paddock and competing. That's Tony Griffiths and company arriving. Tony Fisher prepares the public address system. Tony Griffiths unloads the Formula One Brabham. Chris Kramer has an early lunch, whilst Tony Southall, Peter Matthews and Alistair Douglas Osborne prepare their Mallocks. Practising on the day we see Jeff Till, Chris Dewing in the Mini, Mike Hawley, Tony Southall, Peter Matthews, Tony Griffiths, Jeff Rollison, Mike Hawley again, and Tony Griffiths in the F1 Brabham again. The Castrol BARC Hill Climb Championship started the competition side of Loughton Park on the 1st of April in 1973. Jeff Rollison and Tony Griffiths both had class wins that day, with fastest time of day going to Ken McMaster with a time of 56.97 seconds. There's John Dorset having a chat. Richard Thwaites is seen first on the hill in his McLaren. Followed by the Hillman Avenger course car. Leaving the start we see Mike Flather, Jim Thompson in the Vauxhall Magnum, Brian Kenyon in his Sprigget, and club captain at the time, Richard Yapp. Gordon Gilbert's Mini is given some instructions by Paul Parbett. There's Peter Matthews again in his Mallock, the second Mallock he home built for himself. Alistair Douglas Osborne was spectacular back in 1973, long before becoming Hill Climb champion in 1977. Here's Jeff Rollison, who had the class win of 59.06 seconds, now in the year 2000 driving a Ferrari sports car. He's followed by Richard Thwaites. And Tony Griffiths, who had the class win on that day in 57.12 seconds. Roy Lane finished second in the class on 57.36 seconds. Noddy bikes were all the rage in 1973. Eventually they did have to be banned. There's Richard Thwaites demonstrating how to ride one. Following Peter Matthews in his Mallock. At the top of the hill, here we see Margaret Blackstone in the GT40 shared with husband Peter and eventually sold to Noel Edmonds. That's David Franklin, who is now circuit racing in classic sports cars. Here is fastest time of the day driver Ken McMaster. Cars return down to the paddock. There's John Stewart giving a cheery wave, and Margaret Blackstone in the GT40, Ken McMaster. Back to Fallow Corner, and that's Chris Kramer. Richard Thwaites locking the front wheel, and Tony Griffiths cutting the corner. Like the Hagley Club, Roy Lane in car number 4 is 65 years old in 2000. And he is followed by 1973 and 1974 champion Mike McDowell. We were still using the Vono Works for auto tests, not driving tests anymore, and that was Harry Yapp, clerk of the course on that day, which was the 8th of April. That's John Livingston. Frank Livingstone there, in the middle of the group. Dennis Beer was a great stalwart of auto testing, competing several times in the Ken Wharton auto tests for the English team. Trevor Smith, seen here, tried his hand at rallying eventually, becoming national champion. For several years, Trevor too was a member of the English team in the Ken Wharton auto tests. And that's Rich Yapp and the faithful Sprite. Unlike the Yapp Sprite, that looks like a somewhat modified special auto test car. And that's George Holland again, seen a few years ago, back at the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. Phil Derbyshire has been a keen Hagley supporter for many years and is seen here in a Mini Clubman 1275 GT. Phil, even now, is a very, very good auto tester. Jeff Till, a former committee member, also enjoyed his auto testing. Following Tony Hunt in the white Escort. We move on to another Escort, this one in the hands of the club's 1999-2000 president Garth Weaver. Nowadays it's quite rare to see a Volkswagen Beetle auto testing, but certainly back then they seemed all the rage. And some of the home-built specials were a sight to behold. Even now, the big event of the year, at the 1,475-yard-long Loughton Park venue, was the British Championship Hill Climb. This event was held on a somewhat wet 23rd of April. As we see drivers unloading and preparing their cars, there's Kathy Cooper's Purple Peril. Alistair Douglas Osborne with his Malloch, and there are some marshals preparing for a wet day. Ken McMaster is seen first on the hill. With Charlie Lashford and Richard Warner also determined to get to the top. That's Tony Southall in his Malloch. And there's Mike McDowell in his Brabham. Spridgets that day were enjoying themselves, with Richard Japp on the grass and John Hunter spinning. Diane Pilkington there in the yellow anorak was a keen club supporter, and now we see Alistair Douglas Osborne at Fallow Corner. There's Peter Matthews and his Malloch again. Former committee member John Stewart in yet another Malloch. And Margaret Blankstone in the GT40. A bit of autocrossing there by a Cooper. And this is on the outside of Fallow Corner, looking up to the top of the hill. There's David Good, Chris Kramer, Richard Thwaites, Tony Griffiths, Roy Lane, and Mike McDowell. David Hepworth had second FTD that day with a time of 62.89 seconds. And that's 1972 champion Sir Nicholas Williamson, who recorded FTD with a time of 62.34 seconds. More autocrossing by the Cooper contingent. Tony Griffiths that day was 4th on 64.14 seconds, with Roy Lane 5th on 65.20 seconds. Castrol supported the BTRDA Autocross Championship, and the club held its first Autocross of 1973 at Upton Warren on the 28th of May. Watch the amazing little daff of John Bevan. Belt driven, I presume. TVR Vixen belongs to Mr. R. Easton. What a car for an autocross. There's Rich Yap again in his well-used Sprite. Those beetles get everywhere, don't they? One of the fun events of each year was the evening auto test event. On the 20th of June the event took place at Shenstone at the old training college. Current President Garth Weaver recorded a first in class. And that's Bill Pardo in his Hillman Avenger. And Colin Till in the Volkswagen Beetle. There's one-time club secretary Harry Yap in his Sprite. And Steve Layton, current club chairman. A slightly more serious fun event was the annual Hagley Ludlow Sporting Day, with the auto test part being held at Pedmore House on the 8th of July. There's Steve Layton, current chairman, with hair. On the left, Martin Hill, talking with Garth Weaver. Thank you, Martin. Chris Dewing is seen there, and that's Max Trimble in his Fiat. John Dorset in his Ford Escort. Jeff Till just had to be different. But the Caravanette seemed to work moderately well. And that's Alan McFarlane in his Sprigget. In the 1960s and 1970s, the club held regular circuit race meetings at Castle Combe. But on the 22nd of July 1973, we were at Mallory Park. We're about to watch the Group 1 and Formula 3 practice sessions, followed by races for special saloons and monoposto racing cars. In the red anorak, Peter O'Sullivan, starter that day. And there's Phil Meacham. The driver's briefing has been given by Ron Embley. Starter Peter O'Sullivan, his moment of glory. The event itself was entirely organised by the Hagley Club.